Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. I hope you guys are all enjoying your week so far. Not long to the weekend now, and I will be back in St James's Park this weekend. That's right, not for the football, and it's actually tomorrow night, Friday night. It's to go and see Sam Fender. I was one of the lucky, I was going to say lucky few, lucky thousands. It feels like the lucky few compared to the demand to get a ticket. So I'll be in there looking forward to being in St James's Park. Looking forward to going and see Sam Fender. It's not for the football, but I think it will have a football-style atmosphere. I think a lot of people are going to be wearing black and white tops. It's going to be good. If you were lucky as well, let me know down in the comments below. And I will be doing a video of some sort, I should imagine. So look out for that tomorrow. But today we are here to talk about Newcastle United and a few more transfer reports with a bit of a twist. Obviously, we've been talking about how much Newcastle have to spend this summer window. I think Newcastle will go out and spend a fair bit this summer window, despite Eddie Howe saying 1 or 2 players. I'm saying 4 or 5. I don't know if it would go way over that, but I imagine that there will be a fair few signings, and I think there will be some big money spent this summer window as well. But a bit of a twist today, because the reports coming out that Newcastle are in fact targeting some players from the relegated Premier League sides. So Southampton, Leeds and Leicester, the Telegraph have reported that Newcastle are actually pinpointing some of those players who they could maybe try and pick up on a lesser fee and bring into Newcastle United. Now, it's an interesting one because a team who got relegated for a reason. But it's not to say they don't still have some talents in there that Newcastle could take, improve under Eddie Howe, and potentially be playing Champions League football. To go from a relegated side to Champions League football in a summer isn't too bad for that player. And what you'd normally like to hope is that because they've got relegated, Newcastle could potentially pick them up on a lesser fee. Now, we'll talk through each of the players. I've got a handful here. If I miss any out, well, first of all, let me know your thoughts on the players that I talk about today. If I do miss any that you like, be sure to let me know down in the comments. Maybe you guys could like each other's comments and we can see which one rises to the top that you would potentially like to see Newcastle go for. We talk about pricing, we talk about getting them slightly cheaper. I don't know if it works as easy as that these days. I think teams know what their players are worth and they know that Newcastle have got loads of money. So I respect that it will probably help, but I still think teams know the value of their players. I mean, we'll start off with Leicester. I mean, one of the big ones is James Maddison, isn't it? Now, really, it's already been linked to James Maddison already this summer window. Him along with Szoboszlai are the two kind of big names that Newcastle are being linked with in terms of midfielders. James Maddison, as much as he did get relegated with Leicester, he still got, 10 goals last season? I think he got, was it 8 or 9 assists? So even in a team that got relegated, he was still able to produce. And I've said that a few times now, it's getting in those players that just bulk the numbers a little bit. Longstaff's been incredible. If you could add goals to Sean Longstaff's game, honestly, I think he doubles in value. Like, it makes such a big difference in a side who can score goals freely, and as much as he does, he's like 95% of the way there, other than when we play Southampton in a semi-final of a cup and he manages to bag 2. If he could do that more frequently, it would just really, really push him. So at the moment, we're looking at players who can do that. Maddison is a player that can. It's interesting because he has 1 year left on his deal. And although he's a relegated side, you're still expecting to pay, 40, 50 million? Because he's such a high profile, he's also being linked with Spurs. He's being linked with a few other teams. Leicester know his value. They know what a good player he is. And lots of teams are interested. So this isn't kind of really going down the route that we were going to talk about in terms of getting players maybe for slightly cheaper. Although I mentioned it at the start, it's just not really the way the Premier League works anymore. I think there's just so much money. Bargains, unless you go abroad, are tough to find. So you let me know your thoughts on Maddison down below. Him versus Szoboszlai. I think the fact that he's got 1 year left on his deal, really, Leicester are looking to sell. I think his wages aren't totally out there. I think if he came in now, he'd probably be on similar to what Bruno or Joe Linton, maybe 120,000, maybe a little bit more. I don't think we're talking 200, 250. I mean, Tielemans, he was someone we were linked with previously. He's actually on a free. You know, they got relegated. He's actually on a free at the moment. Now, the big issue with him being on a free is that you expect to pay lots and lots of money on his wages because effectively he wants the transfer fee. He wants to be paid what he would be worth had you bought him from a different club. Newcastle aren't really in the links with him this time round, and I think that's why. Plus the fact that, again, going back to a side that got relegated, I think you can respect Maddison for a player who, wasn't maybe at his best when they went down, but I think Tielemans is more a player that you look at and go, did he down tools a little bit? Someone who certainly didn't down tools was Harvey Barnes. He's another player who's being linked with Newcastle now. He's being linked with Newcastle, Villa. It's understood that West Ham are leading the race on Barnes at the moment. That was reported by The Telegraph. Obviously, big up to West Ham for their big trophy win last night. Barnes, in fact, scored 13 goals this season in a relegated side. Just 25 years old. I think he's a player who works hard. I think he's got the right mentality for an Eddie Howe side. Someone who will throw themselves in there and be direct with the ball. I think Barnes is someone who isn't afraid to pick the ball up and run with it. That's why we've seen the likes of Murphy actually come in and take quite a lot of game time off Almiron. I think it's because Murphy's just so direct. He just goes and he tries to get it in. He tries to create. Almiron's getting way better at it. Don't get me wrong, but he still has the tendency to turn around, pass it back. Murphy's very there. I think Harvey Barnes is the same. I think that's a really good one. The trouble with Barnes, because he's not quite as high profile as Maddison, but despite being in a relegated side, despite Leicester probably wanting to offload him, he's linked with us, he's linked with Villa, he's linked with West Ham. I'm sure if you talked about Harvey Barnes at 10, 15 million, every team in the Premier League's interested. That option. So yeah, Newcastle, as I say, West Ham's reportedly leading the race there, but I think that would be quite a good one. I quite like that one. I do. I don't think Barnes is the player that Maddison is. I think even in 2-3 years' time under Eddie Howe, if you had Barnes and Maddison could be really there, and I think Barnes has the ability to be very, very good. I think Maddison is already star quality. I think Barnes takes a little bit extra, but that's why Maddison's valued higher. Okay, let's move on. Moving on to Leeds. Now, Jack Harrison, that's obviously a player that we were linked previously, and there's not been a whole load of links right now, except for the fact that Leeds are saying they want to offload the 90 grand a week player. He actually signed a new contract not too long ago. But despite that, it's thought that he may go. No one really knows. There's not been a lot talked about this one, except for the fact, same with Maddison, it happened with Jack Harrison. We were in there for him previously. We saw it with Sven Botman, we saw it with Gordon. Eddie Howe has the players that he likes and he goes back for them. So I wouldn't write Harrison off just yet. And in a right wing position where I think we could probably do right, left, in a winger positions I think we could do with a little bit of help. I still don't think that's a bad one. One, however, that has caught the eyes of quite a few people today, reported by The Telegraph again, is Tyler Adams. Now, you might not have heard quite as much about this guy, just 24 years old. He's American, actually plays for the USA national team, played at Red Bull New York Red Bull, I said that the wrong way around for some reason. New York Red Bull, then went to Red Bull Leipzig, and then joined Leeds just last season, literally this time last season, July last year. He's only been there a year. He signed for 20 million and he got injured in March. So he missed a bit of the end of the season. Now, Jesse March actually came out at the time before he lost his job and said that losing Tyler Adams in that midfield was one of the big reasons why they started to slide. And despite the fact that he was injured from March, he still managed to finish fourth for most tackles in the Premier League. Plays midfield, defensive midfield position, is a little bit versatile as well. Can move him around. And as I said, at the young age of 24, with already international experience, Premier League experience, I can see why it's someone Eddie Howe may well be looking at. In terms of what teams he's been linked with, obviously Newcastle, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest. It's understood that he could be picked up for less than 30 million. As I mentioned, Leeds bought him for 20. So it's not like we can go in there and grab him for 5-10 million. I just don't think... I think it's tough to get budget buys in the Premier League now. Unless you go abroad over to France, try and pick up somebody who's slightly more unknown. And that's why we've got Dan Ashworth. You know, that's why he's here, to go out there and find these gems. Doing it in the Premier League for players where everybody's seen them, and where you've got an international player with experience in Leeds who've just spent 20 million on him. They're going to want to at least make their money back. But for someone who's young and can, you know, work under Eddie Howe, I don't mind it. I think that's quite a good one. I mean, we haven't seen loads of him, let's be honest. What I've seen of him is the half a season he played in the Premier League, and he was in a team that got relegated. So I'm not going to wax lyricals about this guy. But what I've seen, he sounds good. I think a lot of what I've read, more than anything, is the mentality, working hard. I mean, these are all things that Eddie Howe really desires from his players, almost over talent or skill at times. You know, so you think of Murphy, who really none of us thought would really excel. He has finished the season as a player that nobody thought he could do. And yes, Murphy has talent, don't get me wrong, he's a professional footballer. But it's a lot of it is working hard and for the team and doing things right. And if you can train players to do that, it's a big help. Moving on to the third relegated team, Southampton. Now, I'll mention it. James Ward-Prowse, obviously we've been linked with him previously quite a bit. I've seen some people saying that they would still take him, some saying that maybe they wouldn't. I wouldn't write it off. I think it's still there. I think Ward-Prowse, if he could... And would he? Because he's been linked away quite a number of times. He actually went ahead and signed himself a new deal at Southampton as well to really show his commitment to the club. But having got relegated and done interviews since then, he hasn't been quite so, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to make sure we get back to the Premier League. He's kind of spoken more about how things haven't worked and things need to change, and he hasn't really set his stall out as what he's going to be doing next season. And can you blame him? I mean, he's been fighting at relegation at Southampton for a very, very long time. I know that he's a Southampton lad, but when you've got a Premier League side, that's the thing, the Championship, if you've got any Premier League side, never mind a Champions League side, potentially offering the chance to go and make that jump from, as I say, here to here in just a couple of months' time, you're probably going to listen. Now, the thing with Ward-Prowse, what does he do? He adds depth in midfield. I think he was one of the rising talents coming into the England squad just a season or two ago, and with Southampton not being great, has struggled to strive. I think he's another player that under Eddie Howe could take big steps. Now you might say we've already got Joe Linton, Bruno and Sean Longstaff, and if we're looking at Madison and Szoboszlai or whatever, is he going to find a place? Well, yeah, it's giving us options, and he's not at the top of my list, but he's on the list. And another one reported from Southampton is Kyle Walker-Peters. Now, this was the lad who had previously been at Spurs before joining Southampton a couple of years ago. Just 26 years old, plays right back, but can also play left back. I mean, that's one there that I think we possibly could get on a more reasonable price. It's not someone that I'm rushing to the door to try and bring in. I think it really depends on what's happening with Trippier, Crafty, Manquillo, and Ashby. You know, if we're trying to make space in there, I would, and I am hoping to do a bit of a keep or sell video sometime in the next few weeks. If that's for right backs, I would be tempted to actually let Crafty and Manquillo go. Trippier, and if Ashby's up to it, who actually got a medal last night, by the way, for Europa League Conference, because he had featured in that tournament for West Ham before signing for us. So he's not done too bad. He managed. It's like a Declan Rice. He's won the cup. Now he's thinking about leaving. Ashby's won the cup and he's already left and got to a Champions League side. So yes, I'd love to see Harrison Ashby actually come in, start making some appearances, get some game time behind Trippier, and that's a reliable, known right back in Trippier and a young lad coming through to learn from. The question is whether that's enough or whether we needed more. With Kyle Walker-Peters, he can play right back and left back. We've got about 700 left backs at the moment, so I'm not too worried about that. And although I wouldn't mind a more attacking one, so maybe I am worried about it. But yeah, that was another one in Kyle Walker-Peters. So you let me know your thoughts down below on the names mentioned. I've picked a few from each club. I think the ones that I've picked, to be honest, are probably the more highbrow ones from each side, and the ones that maybe most clubs will be looking at. Tyler Adams is one that seems to have caught the eye of a few in the media today. So maybe you can let me know your thoughts on him if you know a little bit more than I do. As I say, from the time I'd seen him at Leeds, which wasn't long, he looked good in terms of getting himself around and putting in the tackles. You know, sometimes it's just keep it simple at times, and we can try and build him up from there. As I mentioned, fourth most tackles in the Premier League. I mean, it helps when you're playing for a Leeds side who are getting battered off everyone to try and make more tackles, but considering he got injured months ago and is still in the top 5, ain't too bad. So let me know your thoughts down below on those links to team players from relegated sides. Can you see Newcastle trying to shop in that market, or will we be sticking to the Shabazz lies? I mean, that's the thing. Madison's in that market as well, and he's from a relegated side. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already and you're still watching 15 minutes later. It's free. Just hit that big red button. Loads of videos coming out at the moment about Newcastle United. And yeah, I'll catch you later.